start our unit on decimals by looking at how to change fractions into decimals and how to change decimals back into fractions. And we want to do this first because it'll help with being able to order and compare decimals, and also later on it might be helpful when we're adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. So we'll just start out with this. It's very basic. You've probably done it before, but it should just be a good review. So we're going to start out by taking a fraction and we're going to change it into a decimal. So this is the fraction 3/4. And so to change this fraction, 3/4, into a decimal, we're going to write it like an actual division problem using the long division sign. And to do that, we put the numerator inside and the denominator on the outside. The obviously goes in the box. That's how some people remember it. So the numerator divided by the denominator. Always whatever number is on top goes inside. And so now it's just a regular division problem that we can solve. How many times does 4 go into 3? It doesn't, so we're going to add our decimal point and add on a 0, and now we have how many times does 4 go into 30? And we know that goes in there 7 times, and that would be 28. And we can subtract and get 2, and add on another 0, carry it down, and 4 goes into 20 5 times, that's 20. 4 times 5 is 20, and subtract, and we get 0, and we're done. So 3/4 as a decimal equals 0.75 or 7,500. This is actually an easy one that you wouldn't even have to do the division. I think of always whenever we have fourths, like quarters. This is like 3/4 out of 4. So how much money is that? 75 cents. So whenever you see fourths, I always think of quarters, and you can just change it right into a decimal without even having to divide. So we can just try a couple. I'm going to skip this first one for now. Here we have 1/4. So just like we were just talking about, 1/4 as a decimal. Well, if I have 1 out of 4 quarters, I have 25 cents. So that's one that we wouldn't even have to do. So if we wanted to check it, we could do the long division, but that would be an easy one to just know. 1/2 is the same way. If I have half of a dollar, I have 50 cents. So 0.5 or 0.50, 5/10, 5/50. So a lot of these you are just going to be able to know without having to do long division. But if you don't know them, that's when you want to do long division. So like 2/5, we could actually write it out and figure out the answer. So remember, we put the 2 on the inside of the division sign and the 5 on the outside. And we go, how many times does 5 go into 2? It doesn't, so I put my decimal point, add a 0. 5 goes into 24 times. 5 times 4 is 20. And we can subtract and get 0. So 2/5 as a decimal is 4/10. And I say this 1/3 for last, just because it's not going to give us one number for an answer, or it won't give us an ending decimal. So we'll see here. 1 divided by 3. 3 does not go into 1, so I'm going to add a decimal point and a 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times, and that would be 9. So I'm going to subtract 9 and get 1, and bring down another 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. That's 9. Subtract, and we get 1. You may start to notice that we're doing the same thing over and over again each time. So it's just going to be 0.3 repeating over and over and over again. So once we see that same pattern is going on, we're done. And so I can write 1/3 as a decimal like this, 0.3, and we can put a line over the top. That means it's 3 repeated over and over again. So this is one of those special fractions that will give us a repeating decimal for an answer. Now let's say we're going the other way. Let's say that we have a decimal and we want to change it back into a fraction. So here's what I do. First thing I do is just read that number. How would we read it in mathematical language? And I can see that it's in the tens, hundredths, thousandths place. So this is 125 thousandths. That's what that number actually is. Thousandths. So now I'm going to actually write that number as a fraction, just as we read it. 125 thousandths. So we have 125 thousandths. So thousandths would be written as 1,000. So 125 over 1,000 is 125 thousandths. And now we simply have to simplify this fraction. And I know that 25 will go into both of them, so I'm going to divide by 25. And I would get 125 divided by 25 is 5. And 1,000 divided by 25 would be 40. Because 25 goes into 100 4 times, and add on a 0. And it's still not simplified, so I can divide by 5 this time on the top and the bottom, and get 1 over 8. And that would be in simplest form. So 125 thousandths as a fraction is 1/8. So all you have to do when you're changing a decimal to a fraction is read that decimal, just as we would in mathematical language, and write down what we're saying, and then just simplify it so it's in the simplest form. So we're just going to try a couple here. Here we have 10 hundredths. So let's write that as a fraction. 10 hundredths. Hundredths is written as 100 because it's hundredths. And then we can simplify. So I know that 10 goes into both 10 and 100, so I'm going to divide by 10 on the top and the bottom. And I will get 1/10. And that would be my answer in simplest form. We can do the same thing for this next one. Here we have 80 hundredths. So I'm going to have 80 on top. And again, it's hundredths, so I'm going to write it over 100. And I know that 20 will go into both 80 and 100. So I'm going to divide by 20 on the top, divide by 20 on the bottom, and we'll get 4/5. That's 80 hundredths in simplest form. Our next one is 5 hundredths. So again, we have over 100, but on the top we'll have 5 over 100. And 5 and 5 will go into both 5 and 100. So I'm going to divide by 5 on the top and the bottom and get 1/20. And this last one, we've already actually talked about this one. 0.3 repeating. We know that it's going to be 1/3. Because we've already done that one on the previous slide. But how would we actually write this one as a fraction? Well, unfortunately, we can't really write it like we did these other ones with 3 over 100, 3 over 10, because it's 3/10, because it's not really 3/10, it's 0.3 repeating. So here's kind of a little cool trick. Any number that has one digit that's repeating over and over again, so like 0.1 repeated, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 6, 7, 8, 0.9 repeated over and over again, is going to be a fraction over 9. And it's whatever the number is repeated that's going to be on the top. So 0.3 repeating is 3/9. So that's just one you kind of have to know. And 3/9 will simplify into 1/3 because you can divide by 3 on the top, divide by 3 on the bottom, and get 1/3. So whenever you see one number repeated over and over again, the bottom number, the denominator, is going to be 9. The top number will be whatever number is being repeated, and then if necessary, you can simplify it. So in closing, to change fractions into decimals, you're going to take the top number divided by the bottom number, and if you have a decimal and you need to change it back into a fraction, you need to read the number and write down exactly what you're saying. It's going to be the number on top, the decimal, over a multiple of 10. It could be 10, it could be 100, it could be 1,000, or a power of 10 rather, not a multiple. Power of 10, and then you just need to simplify.